Hello, all, and welcome back to a new episode of Movies and Us, a weekly gathering place filled with conversations about movies, stories, and connection. My name is Jennifer Hahn.
And I'm Sarah Callan.
And today we are very excited. We're going to be reviewing the latest Spike Lee Denzel pairing. Today we're going to be talking about the latest film, Highest to Lowest. Sarah, you're going to kick us off with an IMDb summary for Highest to Lowest.
Sure. When a Titan music mogul is targeted with a ransom plot, he is jammed up in a life or death moral dilemma.
All right. That is a juicy premise. I mean,
Yes,
anything
it
with a
is.
ransom plot, I feel like is just a great time.
It's true. It's true.
In some sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so one sentence summaries in Movies Nest tradition. Sarah, what is yours for Highest to Lowest?
Mine is Spike Lee needs everyone to overstand his love for NYC.
Nice. Well played. Well played. I love that the jokes in this film are just so buried in there. I think it's really great. You're like, oh, well done, Denzel. Oh, my one sentence summary is time to replace the slogan "Live, Laugh, Love" with "Good money, good art, good people."
Honestly, though, it's a much better slogan.
Yes, indeed. So there's a lot to talk about with this movie, and it's been fascinating to see kind of some of the reactions to this film as well. So I'm curious, Sarah, where do you fall on the spectrum of highest to lowest being really incredible, really great, the latest new Spike Lee joint, or man, maybe left a lot to be desired from this film? Where do you fall on that spectrum?
Yes. I do want to preface my answer with saying that before watching this film, I went and I watched the original Kurosawa
Nice.
film, High and Low. And that movie is great. Highly recommend, especially if you're like a mystery fan or like a
Oh,
police
yeah.
procedural fan. Even if you're not, it's still a great movie. So like highly recommend watching High and Low. And so while I was watching Highest to Lowest, I kept thinking about that movie. And there are some choices that Spike makes in Highest to Lowest that makes a lot of sense, that brings this into today and makes it more relevant to today instead of some of the things that are included in the original film. But he also makes some like stylistic departures that I think make this a less interesting movie. And so I kept struggling because I mean it's a very, very different movie. It's based on the same basic premise. It's based on the same book. But I think some of the choices in Highest to Lowest didn't really work for me. You know, Denzel is great always, and he really carries this film for me. I loved a lot of the like Spike Lee just loves New York kind of bits. I loved all of like the joking about like basketball and stuff like that. Like there's a lot of fun bits in this that I really loved, but I think as a whole, this movie was just okay for me. Honestly, it just made me want to go and rewatch the Kurosawa film because that movie was excellent. And I was on the edge of my seat for that. Whereas Highest to Lowest, I was kind of like, oh, okay, this is fine. I didn't have like, as good a time as I thought I was going to have with the team up of Spike Lee and Denzel Washington. But
Yeah.
that's where I'm at. What about you? How did you feel about this movie?
Yeah, this was a movie that I was very excited for, very much anticipating. It's been a minute since we've seen Spike do something and birth something into the world for us to just savor. And so I was really pumped for this. Obviously, anything Denzel's in is going to be incredible, and he really does bring so much to this film. I understand why so many people are finding that this is not working for them. Like, I really get it because it's not the fresh, punchy film, super tight film that we would expect from this pairing. However, I still loved this movie, and it's not perfect. There's a lot of flaws. There's a lot of things that I think could have been better. There's some character moments that I think could have been indulged in and explored more fully for this really interesting character. And all that aside, I still loved this film because I think Spike just has so much to say and he's unafraid to say it. And while it isn't perfect, I think the message that he's looking to deliver to the people, to the industry, is essential, especially for the time that we're in now and the way that art and media is evolving. So just kind of the urgency and the message he wants to bring to the world that he inhabits himself, and the way that he's also paired up and teamed up with big artists in other artistic industries that are not film, I think is so interesting as well. So I love Spike. I love what he stands for, and I think Highest to Lowest is a representation of kind of the space he occupies in the industry. Although I will agree, it is an imperfect film and has a lot of flaws. So every time I'm like reading reviews of people that like didn't like this film or have a lot to say about it, I'm just like, yeah, and yeah, that's true. And yep, that didn't really work, but I still loved it. And I still ate up so much of it. And I think that was an interesting feeling to have too, of like, man, this isn't really the greatest thing that I expected it to be, but I'm still rooting for this. So
Yeah, I kept wondering while watching this if I had watched this movie first and then watched the Kurosawa film second, if I would
yeah,
still feel this way, or if this film would have worked better for me. Like I
yeah,
tried to like block that other movie out of my brain, but like you just can't do that. Like so
yeah,
I kept trying to focus myself on like this is a different story. This is a different interpretation of this kind of general theme and plot. Like don't get
yeah,
so caught up in that, and I my brain kept going there. I couldn't like stop it from doing that. So I'm very curious in the alternate universe if this would have worked better for me had I not had that knowledge of this other film. I don't know. We'll
yeah,
never know.
yeah. Especially if it feels like what that other film does is the exact areas that Highest to Lowest is weakest into. I think that also makes it harder because uh it's rough when you like mourn the film that a film could be as the film is happening to you. You know what I mean? Like the longer I was watching Highest to Lowest, the more I felt like we were deviating from a really sharp, really insightful commentary about both the industry and also human nature. This Highest to Lowest seems to be more interested and fascinated by what it has to say about the industry and the way that art gets made. And I think what have made this really full and strong is us seeing David's character wrestle through all of the human nature and hubris and pride and mythology that he built up for himself, like all of that stuff that kind of draws out the worst sides of him, to then land at the ending that we land on would have been really emotionally satisfying. And I'm curious, like, does high and low do more of that, where it's really focused on this character that has to make a really difficult moral decision, and all of the priorities and lack of priorities that are given to the choice and kind of the pros and cons of both sides of the choices. Is that where that film leads into a little bit more?
Yeah. Uh so so while I was watching Highest to Lowest, totally agree. I wish that there was more of that like wrestling and really spending time with this character, and there's some of that, but I mean when you have Denzel Washington, like
Yeah.
let's really use him and his incredible abilities,
Yeah.
and I feel like this character there wasn't as much there as there maybe could have been, to make especially those decisions at the end seem really, you know, to pay off, some of those things, kind of where the film ends. Uh, High and Low, it's very interesting. I won't like spoil
Spoil
like
it.
plot details, but
Yeah.
structurally, basically High and Low is a tale of two halves. The first half of the film is being introduced to the executive and the kidnapping
Mm,
happened, the ransom, all of that stuff, and then the getting back of his chauffeur's son. That is the first half. The second half of the film is all focused on the police and their investigation. You don't see the executive really in the second half of the film. You hear about him, and because like the press is writing about what he did and his sacrifice and all of that. So I understand why highest to lowest departs from that structure. Um, it totally works in high and low though, and that was one of my favorite parts of that film is the way that that movie structure choice is set up. It makes sense anyway. Um, but in that first half of high and low, you do see him wrestling with do I pay this? And I feel like the wrestling in high and low lasted for so much longer than it does
mhm.
in highest to lowest, and you really feel the desperation of I should I make this choice? Should I not? But then that would mean
Yeah.
bankrupting me, my family, everything we were like you really sit in that emotion as he's weighing the choice and you hear different people telling him different things and it's just I don't know, I feel like it was a much more effective in high and low than it was in highest to lowest even though there
Yeah.
are some similarities there. Even some of the dialogue is almost the exact same from certain people. But yeah, I don't feel like I got the depth of that wrestling and what this would really mean for David if he were to do that. Like cognitively, I understand because he had that conversation with his business partner about it, but I don't know. I wish that there was more depth there, some more meat there, so that when he finally does make this decision, it's you feel the weight of him, paying the ransom and everything, and how monumental of a choice that is. Um,
Yeah.
and then when you see, the result of that, then you feel even more of the weight of that decision that he made. I don't know. I think there's some room for improvement there in the first half of the film that then sets up the second half of the film in highest to lowest.
Mm-hmm. And the well, I guess let's give a spoiler for Highest to Lowest now so we can talk about some of the details. So if you haven't seen Highest to Lowest, I believe it's still out in theaters. It's also on Apple TV Plus. So go watch Highest to Lowest, come back, listen to the rest of our conversation. So I was shocked in Highest to Lowest to see that David makes that choice to give the ransom money and go along with the plot quite early on in the film. And when that happens, I was like, oh, wait, okay, we're doing that thing now. That means there's got to be more coming later because uh, it seems to be the big choice to make of the film. Like, it feels like it's the pinnacle of this character revealing kind of two paths are going to diverge. And this is a moment where he is choosing what kind of man he's going to be, what kind of person he's going to be. And that alone, I think, would have been so interesting and so fascinating, especially seeing the way that his choices are changing as variables in his environment is changing. And I loved seeing how quickly he's immediately going to give the money when it's for his own son. And then even in the way that those conversations unfold when they realize that it's Paul's son with Kyle, it's never about Kyle. And I think I that's so insidious and so terrifying to see that everyone in this family is not thinking about Kyle or Paul at all. It's about themselves. And I think that was a missed opportunity from the movie to really dive into further how much like out of protection and desire to like steward and continue to maintain your own place in society, like you literally become blind to everybody else around you. And the very like the death of your best friend's son like does not cross any of their minds. For Trey, it's about him being able to get into college and what other people are going to say about him. For David, obviously, it's protecting his brand and his reputation. For the wife, it's protecting their place in the family and all of the assets that they have to have security. But fascinating in all those conversations, they never talk about Kyle. And I wish that the film showed that like selfishness without realizing that none of them realizing that they were doing any of that. I wish that came out a little bit more, just that like side of us as humans that are really self-focused and self-seeking. And when the thing that has given us value is threatened, we will be blind to everybody else in order to protect that thing. That was a missed opportunity. I would love to have seen that more. And then the trajectory that we go on with David choosing to self sacrifice, David choosing to care for others around him and not just himself, and kind of reorienting his life would have felt really emotionally satisfying to know how low he realized he could go to protect this thing that didn't even mean anything to him to begin with, and is actually perpetuating the side of the industry that he doesn't even agree with. Kind of that reckoning that he must face with himself would have been really fun to see.
See, I love that idea because I'm sorry, I'm just going to be talking about high and low this entire
Do it.
episode. So my apologies. But
I love it.
so
Do it.
like,
I mean, it's a remake of it, so you should.
well, and so the in high and low, like I said, the second half is all the police investigation. And
Yeah.
I ate that up. I was so fascinating. I love mysteries. I love police procedurals, as flawed as they are. I don't know why I love them, but I do. And so I understand why Spike Lee might not want to
Mhm.
create something that is so like reverential of the police, because there's a lot of that in the first one, because the
Yeah.
police are the good guys, and you know
That's not
it's
Spike's
a
point
little
of
more
view.
complicated. It's not Spike's
Yeah.
thing. And so
No.
I understand why he wouldn't want to go that way. The police in Highest and Lowest are pretty bumbling and ineffective. And so I think, to your point, if they had basically like not done anything with the second half of the original film and just focused on the first half and make it that
Mm,
morality play, that really deep character study, as he's just wrestling with this choice for 85% of the film, and then you can see him actually like make the drop in the end. That's a way to draw from the source material
mm,
and have it not include those pieces that you maybe don't want to include, and still have it be a really interesting movie that capitalizes on the greatness of Denzel Washington, who is one of the greatest living actors. Like, I
yeah.
think that is a solution to solve some of these problems with this film, is really have the film end with either the ransom drop or them getting Kyle back, and then that's the end of it.
Hmm.
And maybe like in the end credits, you can intersperse some things about like social media praising him, and also he has to sell his business or something. Like, you can make the
Yeah.
ending a little bit more complicated or something. But I think that that's a way to address some of the flaws with Highest to Lowest, while also highlighting the really interesting pieces, especially with this character.
Hmm. Yeah. And Denzel can do like inner turmoil, morality, like inner, like fighting yourself so well. I mean, if then it does, no one who believes me, go watch Fences. Like that man can do like fighting every part of himself inside as it's like being internally like stewing, and then these bursts of when it comes out. Like it would have been so interesting to see Denzel just do like in turmoil, honestly, for like half of the movie. But I think that it also helps an explosive ending like we do get with the confrontation of David's character with this like other part of his people and of society that he's kind of lost sight of. I think that's an important like hard reality that he needs to face at the end of the film to then maybe help usher in that final like true like reorienting of vision and rededication of his life to something bigger than himself. So what we really want is this to be like 10% exposition, 75% like Denzel stewing with a morality play, and then like 15, maybe 10% like explosive ending with like lots of rap battle in there, 5% denouement, you know, showcasing the press and all that kind of stuff. I think that would have been really interesting. But one part of this film that I really loved that I think was so well done, and I almost wished there was more time with it, but then also I almost didn't, is that ending and the way that Denzel has to descend from his throne, and come down and realize like where he comes from, but also like the state of what he's left behind and how he has lost sight of so much of that. You know, like in this beautiful tower that he's built for himself, like there's this disconnect. And that's part of, I think, young felons like urgency to be like, you forgot about us, you forgot about your people that are fighting to get things made, that bring things to the world, and you're over there in your big tower and you don't even pay any attention to us, you know. And I think that reckoning, that conversation, that confrontation is essential for what isn't fully emotionally cathartic, but I think does work a little bit when Denzel finally realizes, or King David's character realizes, I've sold my soul to this thing, you know, and I've tried to protect my place in this record company that was great at a time, but it is now buying into the trends and the money making of it all, and kind of like a reorienting back to his roots. I think is like essential at the that ending moment, which I think I really loved. But I think that's essential, and I think everything that happens in that climactic sequence is needed for that reorientation, that recoming back to who you really are, and not letting yourself get caught up in like the trends and the waves and the money making of it all, which is so relevant to our time now in the way that media is being funded, created, and kind of the snowballing effect of media, making it clear and maybe more tempting to fund things that may be like toxic or detrimental for society. And yet, if the money's there and the groundswell of the media and social media and the support of the people are there, it's hard to say no to that, you know? And I think perhaps that's something that Spike experiences so frequently, and kind of being in a standalone indie voice in an industry that is so driven by that. But also just, I think it's like essential for the plot line too. So I ate all of that up, and I think it's essential to keep that in somehow, or even like bring that out even more too.
Yeah, to help us, really understand that this isn't just, a movie about these people in this journey that David goes on, but it really is a hey, let's look at what we value and what we prioritize. Because I think even, as consumers of things like movies and music and such, like what are we paying attention to? Like how do we respond to these things, and I don't know, how do we support indie creators? And that's honestly like a conversation that we have on this podcast all the time
Yeah.
is, we have this voice, this place where we talk about movies. How can we use this platform to showcase more indie films and
Mhm.
help these indie directors and these indie creators maybe find a bigger audience, and us not just always covering, blockbusters and the things. I mean, we love a good blockbuster, but how do we also, try and lift up these other voices and showcase these other creators who are very incredible? So it's interesting how that theme isn't just for a wealthy music mogul, but can be applied to even like regular everyday people like us. And so I love that theme. But like you said, I wish that there was just a little bit more there for us to maybe sink our teeth into a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think while we're rewriting this movie, or revising or sharing the things that maybe we would love to see more of, I think that's something that is maybe there's a way perhaps to weave it into the version that we imagine, but having that deeper or slightly like more time to explore young felon's character, I think would have been really interesting, especially viewing him as an opposing force or an axis on the other side from what Denzel is moving towards. Like they're kind of moving over the course of the film in opposite directions. And what they're motivated by and what they're choosing to lean into is also moving in opposite directions. So like Denzel's character over the course of the film goes back to his roots, his love for music and kind of the simplicity. I love that even that ending sequence of the woman just singing. Sula just singing with a piano and stripping everything back to just get back to the music. And on the opposite side of that axis is artists and creators that are moving towards mass appeal, moving towards sensationalism to drive attention and viewing attention as the currency. I think one of the characters at one point in this film says, like, attention is the currency of this business. And my gosh, is that true for the day and age that we live right now? But optimizing for that means that you compromise and you make trade-offs to the type of art that you create, to the morals that you choose to stand by, and how it's easy to buy into that. I mean, in a lot of ways, Young Felon's character and the other two record company execs are not any different from each other. Their methods might be different, the spaces they occupy are different, but their focus and what they're looking at, the direction they're looking at, is optimizing for attention, to drive business, to essentially drive like an influence, identity, power, right? And Denzel's character is so incredible because by the end of this film, he sees that his power, his influence is being able to protect and steward young artists that have true talent and are not interested in any of that other stuff. And I think those axes are honestly feeling clearer and clearer as we look at like a lot of art today that fall on these spectrums. And it's fascinating it would have been fascinating to see those motivating factors for those record company music producers and Young Felon, and almost kind of like them being lumped, and driven by very similar motivations. I just think that set of three points that move in different directions in this film would have been really interesting to chart, because Denzel starts with the music producers and moves in another direction. And those two, Young Felon and the music producers, move closer together by the end. Just that whole triad would have been really neat to see chart out too. So there's probably a way to do that and have Denzel just like stew in turmoil for a lot of it too. But I would have loved to see that too, because I think that's so important right now. And it's such a beautiful theme of this film that could have been displayed even further.
I mean, it's true because it is really like the attention economy. So I love that
Yeah.
theme that Spike is highlighting in this film. I think it doesn't land as well as it maybe could have, which is
Yeah.
it's so unfortunate because, like you said at the beginning, like the ideas are there and it's so relevant for our time, and Spike brings up a lot of different things that we're dealing with right now, and I feel like it doesn't quite land as it could. So I think just some tweaks to the screenplay maybe would help these themes really, really land a punch more than it does.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Agreed. Agreed. There's some emotional beats that I agree with a lot of people that have critiques of this film that were really kind of funky. The scene where the family learns the news of the fact that Trey is kidnapped, so funky. I was like, I actually thought it was intentionally meant to be kind of like this like absent satirical, like we're gonna do the thing but not really give it all, because it's gonna, in general, I felt like this film was playing with a lot of tropes and shots of like 2000s feel good movies, and I didn't know if that was part of what they were doing in that scene of just like, and something dramatic happens and characters react, but they're not really like there because nothing's really that serious, but it's meant to be dramatic, very 2000s esque. And so, but I'm still not sure, honestly. I'm curious how you read that, because I was like, this is kind of genius if it's like the satirical performance of the way that characters react in 2000s movies sometimes to create drama, but like it's not really that dramatic, you know? But I don't know, maybe it wasn't intentional. And I think most of the critics are reading that as like not intentionally done. And as therefore, then if it's not intentional, it's real weird and real funky because they do not look sad and surprised and heartbroken at all. So I'm curious how you read that sequence because that's the one where there's a lot of moments where the emotions are kind of funky, but that's one where it's so obvious and so clear. How did you interpret that scene?
Yeah, I just thought it was bad.
Okay, nice.
um yeah, there's so many moments in this, and that was again one of those moments when I'm watching Highest to Lowest, and in my mind I'm replaying that same scene from High and Low and going, this was so much better in this other film. Yeah, man, it just did not work for me in Highest to Lowest. It felt, who acts this way? Like, you just learn that your son has been kidnapped and this is how you respond? Like, it just, there was a lot of pieces that just didn't feel like how a normal human being would act. And so it, I don't know. And I think that emotional turmoil is so necessary to set up this um this reckoning that David must do. Do I pay the ransom? And I love that the different reactions, you know, when it's Trey, it's like, okay, immediately gonna give the ransom. I don't even care. We'll figure out the business stuff later. And then once you find out that it's Kyle, being more dismissive, like I love that contrast and what that shows
Mm.
internally. But I feel like there wasn't enough emotion in the original, like Trey has been kidnapped, to really provide as stark of a contrast as there could have been. There is a contrast in this film, 100%, but I think it could have been so much more if people had responded like human beings in the beginning.
Yeah, it was so strange. I kept, I was really trying to figure out why they did it that way, especially because Denzel can deliver a heart wrenching performance. Like it's not out of lack of capacity, you know? And so I'm curious what the direction was in that because, yeah, to see him shift from him and his family being heartbroken over the situation and then to be like immediately in a much more analytical business mode of like, okay, but what does this mean for our family now and our finances, and kind of switch mindset from feeling the closeness of your own little baby being kidnapped to like, no, but the costs are actually really real though. So if it's somebody else's baby, we cannot be thinking about this the same way. Like that shift would have been really fascinating, and the very real dynamics of like when it's your family and your child, like nothing matters. Like you will go to the ends of the earth, pay as much money, sell everything you have to just get your family back. But everybody else's, there's a little more variables in there, you know? And I even would have loved to see conflict and strife between some of the family members too, of some that are urging and making decisions to say like, but this is like, I wanted to see Trey be like, this is my best friend, you know, and dad having to be like, I'm sorry, son, but like we have much more to think about. And like somebody needed to have been like, yo, uh this is a human child, you know. I would have loved to see Paul like literally throw a fit, like be like, how could you, what, you know? And even Paul was, I don't know, a little bit more chill than I would have expected too. He's asking and bargaining with David's character as if it was not his own son, you know? Like I think that was also really fascinating too. Of like Paul's character, also Jeffrey Wright, again, capacity to give an incredible performance. So I wonder what the direction was, or if there was other like filmmaking components that would have made that make more sense in some way. Um, I don't know. I've been thinking about it since because that one is so clear and so obvious what happened, you know?
I
Your
need you to
child's
watch.
lost. Like this should be
Right?
the most heart wrenching moment of the whole movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I need you to watch High and Low. Cuz I
Okay.
think that movie does this part of it so much better. Um it's really fascinating because in High and Low, obviously it's a Japanese film, and so you can see the like relational dynamics and that almost like veneer of like not showing as much emotion, you know, very reverential to like one another and like not wanting to like dishonor people.
Yeah.
That's all in it,
Okay,
as you
cool.
know, his wife is advocating like, hey, you need to pay for this kid. I don't care that it's not ours, you have to pay for it. The chauffeur literally on his hands and knees begging, give
Yeah.
give the ransom, and he does the whole like, make it a loan, I will pay you back, I don't know how, but I'll pay you back, like multiple
Mm,
times he's on his hands and knees begging, and you
wow.
feel just how gut wrenching it is to just watching this chauffeur, and he's trying to be honoring of his employer and not like making a big scene, but it's his son and it's his only son, and you feel that desperation from the chauffeur, and so you see the executive getting it from like both sides, his wife and the chauffeur, of but he's like, no, this is going to bankrupt me, this is gonna we're going to lose everything. And I don't know, I feel like that wrestling in High and Low, and then the emotions of everyone in the room, just it's it's a lot, but it feels like this is really happening and a child is
Yeah.
missing, and we feel the severity of of this choice. But I feel like in Highest to Lowest, it just, I don't know, man, there's just something is funky about the emotions and how all of that goes down. Nobody really responds like a person in that scene. So I don't know how we got there. I don't know how this is the final version that ended up in the film, but I think it doesn't work as well. Like, only if you've seen this movie only, it doesn't work. And then if you've seen the Kurosawa version and that does work, then it makes the Highest to Lowest version even more
Mm,
funky to watch, because it's like, well, I've seen a version of this that works actually a lot better than what I'm seeing
yeah.
right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I I know that a lot of critiques, and I felt it too while the film was happening, which I think also makes the emotional moments feel very off, is the score. Uh, I kept I I just I have like such trust in Spike Lee, so I am like, is there some meta commentary on why he's doing the score in this way to like satirize something? You know what I mean? So basically, the question is it satire, or was this just intentional and it therefore did not work? You know, it's kind of the funny uh, question of it all. And I think jury's still out for me. I think there's a lot. I mean, this movie's about music. Like, there's got to be such intentional choices into the score. So I think the people that are like, why is Spike Lee putting elevator music to this movie, is like maybe writing it off too much. Like, even if it doesn't work, like there's so many musical artists that were also part of this movie. Like, there's no way they missed that badly. There's something there for why that was chosen throughout the entire movie too. It's not just one of the scenes. It's literally the whole movie has this like swirling piano score. Like, I'm like, what is that? It's really jarring, and it's really weird. But I really wonder if there's something behind it that like is part of the purpose and method of it all. But I'm curious your thoughts about the score, because everyone has a lot of opinions online about the score, and I understand all of them because it is very dissonant for the movie that we're in.
Yeah, it feels like everybody was making one movie and the composer was making a completely different movie. And that's what this film feels like. And it's I was so bothered because I think the moments where you have like a known song introduced all felt
Yeah,
correct. I
yeah,
loved the opening with "Oh What a Beautiful Morning" just playing. I was like, "Oh, I am here for this. I want to
Yeah.
watch this movie. And then I think it's oh, I didn't write it down, but I think it's a James Brown song is playing when they're going when Jeffrey Wright and
Oh.
Denzel are going to
Yep.
go find their man. So like
Yep.
those moments totally worked for me, and I'm like, yes, I love the eclectic nature of these songs, how influential these songs and these artists have been in culture. Like I
Yeah.
loved those. It really was just that 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 piano music going on. That was just, it's so jarring. It doesn't make any sense given where we're at. And I like it when films do something interesting with the score. That usually makes me like lean in and like, ooh, what is this musical theme? Like, ooh, what are we doing here? But in this case, all of the music made me lean out. And I was like, this is not it. This is not helping me go deeper into the story or deeper into the character. This is making me want to check out. And I think one example is when I think it's the police are coming to the apartment, and there's this really like melodramatic orchestral score going on. And it just made everything feel like cheap to me. It felt like something that you would see in like a low budget film. They just got some like stock music and just shoved it in there. Like it didn't feel like it matched what I was seeing on the screen. It didn't create tension and stakes. It didn't take me into the moment, but it took me out. And I just felt that again and again and again while watching. And I mean, Spike Lee is so good at what he does. The composer is so talented. Like there's a lot of talent that went into making this score. It just doesn't work though. And I have not had time to do research on why this music was picked and everything. I'm sure that there's lots of reasons for it, but my experience of watching it, every time that piano would come back in, I just checked out. And I was like, I can't do this with you.
Yeah.
And that's the opposite of what a score is supposed to do. The music is supposed to let you feel the emotions of the character. It's supposed to get you sucked into the film more. And I feel like this one just, it takes you out of it immediately. So whatever the intentions were, in execution, it didn't really work.
Yeah, it's real funky. It's so weird. But I agree because I was also like, the fact that I think we're so aware of it is kind of a problem for the effectiveness of making a cohesive piece of art. However, I I think there I just had this feeling from the opening of the film too, and even a lot of the cinematography choices, like these like super big zooms and stuff, like it's so over the top, and it felt like we were making fun of an era of movies that at least I grew up on, that are just, they're all kind of silly, and like so many of the situations don't make sense either. So I I thought a lot of it was like satire. I thought it was intentionally like, isn't it silly the way that we've consumed so much media like this? That why is the attention getting popcorn like stuff that is like literally substanceless, but like we're here for entertainment? And so I thought he was weaving that into this movie to be like, think about how this really doesn't work. And also, I was also thinking about too, which may not be the intention at all, and I'm just reading into more than there was, and maybe this is actually just a bad choice, but I'm like, but it kind of worked. So many of those films are so like set in New York City, but then also like feature always like white protagonists, and are in these like wealthy parts of like Manhattan and stuff. So even to take that same like visual cinematography style, maybe some of the score stuff too, like even the pacing of like, we get the morning shot and then like big happy family goes to drop the kid off, like all that stuff that looks idyllic. And there's a moment where it breaks from that, but like that first 20 minutes or so is following a formula that is like very familiar, but we are seeing different faces, we're seeing different dynamics, we're seeing different homes. And I thought that dissonance was meant to get us to feel like familiar, but we're flipping it on its head. Um, but again, maybe it was just a terrible choice. I don't know. And just like something that was a total miss. But I was really like, this is playing with these things that I remember watching so much in these movies that literally have nothing to say about anything and are just made to be made and made to make money. So I thought Spike was playing with those formats and formulas and then injecting it and putting it in different contexts for us to like look at them and see how ridiculous they are.
I like that. I appreciate that that's where your mind went. Yeah, that did not occur to me. And I think if that was the goal, we needed it to be bigger. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
if if we're gonna make a satire, you need everybody to know that you're
It's a
making a satire. Like, we have to be in on the joke with you. Like, you can't just be
yeah,
trying to like, we think you're playing it straight and you're being satirical. That's not gonna work.
yeah,
So I think if that was the goal, we needed some more clues that that was
yeah.
happening. If that was the intention, it was too subtle. I also think
Hmm.
like I don't know that setting it in 2025 works in that case. I almost feel like you need to make it set in, the earlier 2000s or something and really like get us in on that joke maybe. I don't know. I think it just needed to be bigger. If that was the goal, it needed to be more
Maybe.
obvious, more in your face. You obviously don't need to be, we're intelligent. We'll pick up on things, but we just
No,
needed a
yeah,
little bit more of a hint if that was the goal. And if that was the goal, that's really interesting. And I feel like there's a way to make that shift really obvious too. Like if you're going from, kind of like poking fun at making movies, I feel like there's a way that you can do that for a while and then make a shift of like, okay, but now here's Spike Lee doing what only Spike Lee can do. Watch me go. Take that movie industry. Like I feel like there's a way that
yeah,
that he could have maybe done that if that was the goal. It's a really interesting thought though to be like on the screen and the characters kind of wrestling with what the music industry is doing and then almost as subtext with the filmmaking style having that same conversation with the like cinematography and editing and things. Very Spike Lee thing to do. That
yeah.
would have been a really cool thing to watch. I mean, I'm
Right?
intrigued. I would watch that version of this for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And seeing the way that a meta level Denzel's character is the protagonist in that 2000s substanceless money making machine piece of work. And yet, like, he is figuring out how to break out of that and enter into the real world and break out of his own narrative of perpetuating that kind of media, that kind of art that he is funding, like seeing it would have been neat to see like things come across his desk or music that he's listening to that is like meant to feed the masses or whatever, you know what I mean? And feeling that tension and seeing those choices that he's making at the beginning to fund that type of art. But I think that would have been really, really neat to see Spike play with those ideas. Yeah. But yeah, so I think there's lots of interesting choices that Highest to Lowest makes. Is there any other big things that we want to make sure that we mentioned, talked about, moments in this film that we wanted to mention before we wrap?
Yeah, I have two other kind of quick things. One change that I thought was interesting from high and low to highest to lowest is that in high and low, the children are much younger. I don't remember how old they are. I
Mm,
think they're like 7-ish. They're in that range of they are children, whereas in highest to lowest
mhm.
they are teenagers. And I thought that that was an interesting change. I feel like it works in this film because then you're able to have like Trey have some more advocacy and, his kind of storyline that he goes on. But I also think that, when they're little kids, then there's
Mm.
more of this like emotional gut punch. Whereas if it's a teenager, there's a little bit less of that emotional gut punch. They're still kids. It's still awful that they're taking all of that. But I feel like the trauma and the horror is there's a different level. So I thought it was a real like pro and con of increasing the age of the kids in Highest to
Mm.
Low. So I just thought that that was notable between the two films. And then the other thing that I wanted to bring up is the rap battle scene toward
Oh
the
my gosh,
end.
that was gonna be mine that I needed. Yeah,
Perfect. Yes.
we
Absolutely
have to talk about
incredible.
it.
I read online on IMDb, so take it with a grain of salt, is that rap battle wasn't originally scripted, but just kind of came as they were filming the scene. And so
Yeah,
that also is fascinating to me, this idea that, and we all know like method acting and all of that and everything that actors go through to like develop this character and let this character kind of become them. And so then, what is coming out of the actor is then actually coming out of the character. And I just thought that that was so interesting to think about, that not being something that was originally written that way, but just kind of came organically as Denzel is inhabiting David and what he was able to produce. Because honestly, like in a pretty like mundane kind of like mid-tier for me movie, that rap battle moment, incredible. Like I feel
yeah.
like in that rap battle, we saw from Denzel what we know he can do. We saw his greatness come out in that. And so just shout out to Denzel, who's amazing in everything. He is very, very good in this. He makes this movie, I think, much better than it really is. But that rap
Yeah.
battle, wow, he really, really brings it. It's incredible.
Incredible. That rap battle is going to live rent free in my mind, like for the rest of the year. It was so emotional. It's such an emotional scene because you see that both men are sharing and exhibiting a level of vulnerability and kind of wearing their hearts on their sleeves and like laying all of their cards on the table with each other, but then also having to have survived in their own ways, in their own worlds, and seeking and looking for um, their place in society, whatever that is. And one has seemingly found it and yet is still lost in David's character. And one is young and looking to find it, but perhaps in all of the wrong ways. And you see the way they understand each other, but then also are missing each other. It's incredible. I think one of the very interesting choices that this whole project that Spike has like birthed into the world is choosing to work with and collaborate with ASAP Rocky and Ice Spice, casting them into his film. And the fact that they are almost like in this way joining forces across the music industry and the film industry to look at the way both their industry funds their art, I think is like so interesting and such a strategic choice because this is no longer just a film that only the film people are going to like pay attention to, but like the reach and the message being able to like infiltrate beyond just the film world to with the influence of these two like icons of their industries being able to also bring forth and birth forth and take a stake in the ground of their industries and how music gets funded. It's all so fascinating, the like kind of melding and the alliance and the unity between these creators that are feeling the pressures of their industries, of the money making capitalistic entities, that the people that have the power to say yes or no, and them choosing to advocate together instead of alone in their industries is such a fascinating choice. I would like love to see just the origin stories of how like that partnership came to be, what those like shaping conversations of the stories look like and all that kind of stuff, because I think that that uniting beyond mediums is such an interesting part of this movie at a meta level too, that um, again makes it kind of harder because I wish this film was bitter so that it's like just making waves in both industries. But I think even the fact that it exists is pretty incredible. And maybe there's lots of trade-offs that they had to make along the way and concede to like get this made, and that's what came out. But yeah, that strategic choice, I'm so curious about and want to know more about. So genius. All right. Well, this was our review and discussion of Highest to Lowest. You can find it available out in theaters or to stream on Apple TV+. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Movies and Us. Our name sums it up. We're all about movies and the powerful ways we can connect with each other and the world around us. This podcast is about all of us and our shared stories, so everyone is welcome here, and we're so glad you spent time with us today. You can subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you tune to your favorite shows. Drop us a rating and review, letting us know your thoughts about Highest to Lowest. You can connect with us on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at Movies and Us Pod, or email us at moviesanduspod@gmail.com. Check out our website, andusmedia.co, for the latest on Movies and Us and our other podcast, TV and Us. We will be back next week. It's the 30-year anniversary of the film Seven. Very exciting. We're diving deep into that film. So we hope you have an amazing week, and we'll check again with y'all very soon.